Welcome to Journey with Judy, a weekly podcast filled with faith-infused inspiration, information, and an opportunity for implementation. Now, here is speaker, coach, author, and host, Judy Shares.
Hello, this is Judy Shares here, and it is April 22nd, 2020, and you are listening to and watching the Journey with Judy podcast. And I come to you with a group of people that are just grateful to be here and be together in community in this virtual world that we are all living in. And our topic this evening is going to be our words. Are they nice? Are they necessary? Are they true? Oh my, what words can do. So my friends, we have witnessed the crazy impact that words can have. I mean, like most especially when we turn on any news channel right now. I mean, we got some hateful, hurtful things coming here and there and from everywhere. And the fact of the matter is, words either build us up or they tear us down. As a mother of four, one of the things we used to always say to our kids is, if it's not nice, if it's not necessary, if it's not true, then keep it to you. Now, that never worked, really, but we said it a lot because we understand and understood then the power that words have. Like, the fact of the matter is, words leave a mark, and sometimes indelible marks that we realize and recognize years and years later. So here's the thing about our words. We consider our words to be communication. Right? And communication, as we know, is the essence of relationship. So if communication is the essence of relationship, why is it that we wait and wait and wait for a baby to talk? And then when they talk, we cannot wait and wait and wait till they stop talking, right? And we try so desperately to understand what people say and if it's really what they mean, because let's be honest, we don't always say what we mean. And what we say can be really, really mean. So if we're not mindful of the words we choose to use, they have an impact that was unintended and often not at all what we had hoped for. So just because we're talking does not mean we are communicating. It just doesn't. So here's the thing, the average environment, so home or work environment, has 10 negative comments made to every one positive comment. So the average home, average workplace has 10 negative. Now I know someone on this call, Christopher, who this is totally doesn't apply to for the leader that he is. However, a lot of times we are working and living in an environment that is 10 negative to the one positive. And it takes 4 positives to counteract 1 negative. So 4 positive comments to counteract the 1 negative that we probably said flippantly without realizing its impact. So we got some risks and responsibilities with the words that we choose to use. And here's the thing, so much about what we have come to believe about ourselves, about the world, about life, about people, has become a direct result of the words that have been imparted onto us. Now, they were not necessarily truth. So let me just clarify that. Truth with a capital T, meaning it is a universal truth shared by everyone. We believe and have been deceived by the lies that we consider to be a capital T when really they were just a small t. They were just somebody's opinion at any given time that had a tremendous impact. So here's the thing. We affirm the positive or we dwell on the negative. We spotlight the growth or we point out the weakness. Our words assume the best or they think the worst. We celebrate a victory or we rehash the future. My friends, the words we use either pull people in or have them be pulled away. They either draw them to us or create a distance between us. So we all know those people in our lives who have had words that they weren't mindful of that landed in ways we never forgot. I think it's Maya Angelou says, you may not ever remember what somebody said. However, you will almost never forget the way they made you feel. And that's interesting because let me tell you, we used to go to Mexico on a regular basis when our kids were small. And we were by this entertainment area. And so there's a group of people and they entertained us. And they were doing this survey where they gave away free things. And the question was, what is the strongest muscle in the body? Well, my daughter was probably 5 years old and she raised her hand. Now, the majority of the people around this pool area were adults. And I think they were not really thinking she would know the answer. Well, she marched right up to the microphone and she said, it's your tongue. The most powerful muscle in your body is your tongue. Because here's why. Scripture tells us in Proverbs 18:21 that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 18:21 tells us that life and death are in the power of the tongue. So what does that mean? It means above all, our beliefs, our convictions have been formed by the words that have been spoken unto us. So we speak blessings or we speak curses by the words we choose to use. So if somebody paid you 10 cents for every blessing and 5 cents for every curse, would you be rich or would you be poor? Because my friends, words plant seeds like the words plant ideas like seeds plant trees. So they build us up or they tear us down. The spoken word, scripture says over and over the power of the spoken word because it's potent. The power of the spoken word, it actually can change the trajectory of our life. Something somebody said at a particular time could absolutely change the trajectory of our life. Some of us have not lived out a dream because it was squelched by somebody speaking a curse. Some of us are living out dreams. I mean, there's people on this call who spoke such blessing unto me that I get to be the person who screams at you tonight on this virtual platform. Because people said, go do this, and I did it. They spoke into existence a reality that I am living out now. So here's the thing. There's no more powerful instrument or greater vessel than our mouth or our words. Is that interesting? That's super interesting. Because with it comes a risk, a responsibility, and we have a right to be mindful about the words we use. Number 2, reckless words pierce like a sword. Reckless words pierce like a sword. That's from Proverbs 12:18. Words once spoken can never be brought back. So once they're out there, they're out there. We can't reel them back in. Here's a quote. Surgeons can't heal wounds that words inflicted. Surgeons can't heal wounds that words inflicted. Because it's always what was said and not what they did, similar to the quote I mentioned earlier. It's what somebody said that has the impact, not necessarily what they did. And here's what we know, my friends. We know that hurt people hurt people. So hurt people hurt people. A reckless driver is not thinking about what he's doing. A reckless talker isn't thinking about the words they're choosing. So how often do we say what we mean and mean what we say? Or how often is what we say so mean that we're finding ourselves trying to recover from what we meant by what we said? See, we can rebuke who said something at times, but we can't always redeem what's been said. So if these words that get spoken recklessly, like a sword, and we don't get healing, See, here's what happens. When anything like the feelings elicited in our future life from those words that were spoken then, when those feelings come up, we react as if they're still wounds. I can tell you when my kid says to me, Mom, there's no milk, I give more meaning to that. All they said was there's no milk. Somehow it speaks volumes to some way that I might have fallen short, because somewhere a reckless word was spoken and it cut like a sword. Because my friends, what people say is almost always about them, and what we hear is always about us. So what someone says is about them. What we hear is about us, because we literally filter a conversation through our attitudes and beliefs and perceptions, and we assign meaning to it that the person who's talking to us has no idea of the meaning we decide. As a matter of fact, every 6 to 18 seconds, we drop out of a conversation. That's the neuroscience behind how our brains work. We drop out of a conversation every 6 to 18 seconds. We all are talking to someone and then we say, are you listening? Are you listening? Well, they're listening, but it doesn't mean they're comprehending exactly what you're saying or what you mean by what you say, because they have their own filter. And that filter every 6 to 18 seconds is deciding what you mean by what you say. Number 3, the words of a gossip sink deep into our being. That's also a Proverbs verse. The words of a gossip sink deep into our being. Now, let me tell you, we are witnessing this all over every news channel, okay? That we have the right to exercise our First Amendment. We have the right to the freedom of speech. My friends, we do not have the right to wrong the 8th commandment. So we don't get to break the 8th commandment. The 8th commandment is bearing false witness. And even if what we're saying we believe to be true, and it casts a shadow on someone that is not positive, it is a breaking of a commandment, like it or not. The fact of the matter is, the words of a gossip sink deep into our being. And here's the thing. There's something about human nature, and we're seeing it. We see how when somebody said something, people believed it. I don't know how many of you went out and got like more toilet paper than you needed, but somewhere somebody said we needed to do that. Somewhere somebody said we needed to do a certain thing, and it sunk into our being as if it was truth with a capital T. What's interesting is I have been more mindful since this pandemic about the words that are being chosen by the leaders of a lot of different platforms. And the recognition that as I hear something, I've noticed my tendency to lean into that, to lean in and want to know more. When the reality is it may or may not be truth with a capital T. See, there's something about gossip. Scripture says there's something about gossip that we want to hear it. We want to hear it. We want to know more about it. And it's so interesting because here's what we do. Because it sinks deep into our being, we have already formed an opinion about that person, about that situation, that is not easily undone because the seed was planted. And now as we think about that situation or that person, we have already decided some kind of judgment around them. And here's the deal. We know this. We're commanded to love and forbidden to judge. Because my friends, if you know me, you've heard me say this a million times. What people say and do makes perfect sense to them. What people say and do makes perfect sense to them. And if we are really trying to communicate and we are valuing the words that we choose to use, then we want more than anything to seek understanding about why somebody believes what they believe or has done what they have done, rather than just quickly judge it because we heard a word, we believed it, and we allowed it to sink deep into our being. Now, here's the thing. We think this maybe isn't as relevant as it is. I just want to ask you to sing along with me. I can't hear you, but whoever's around you will be able to sing along too. If I sing this, follow the sentence. Here's a story of a man named Brady. Tell me, raise your hand, those of you who I can see you. Could you finish that song? Here's a story of a man named Brady. You know the words to that? Yes? How about this one? My baloney has a first name. It's my baloney has a second name. It's right? Okay, so if those words from 100 years ago, I'm dating myself right now, age 53, the minute I hear those jingles, I can repeat them as if I heard them yesterday. The words of a gossip sink deep into our being. And my friends, if you have ever been on the receiving end of somebody telling a story about you, even if it's true, it's so painful, and it takes more work to undo what somebody has believed than it did for the seed to be planted. Because like scripture says, the words of a gossip sink deep into your being. So interestingly enough, our words either bless or belittle. They praise or they put down. They cheer up or they criticize. They encourage or they discourage. What a difference a dis makes, isn't it? Encouragement or discouragement. They bring a blessing or a curse, and they bring life or death. So here's what I find interesting. That's the scriptural side of things. Those are 3 scriptures that reference so succinctly the power of our words and the words we choose to use. There's also this neuroscience part of it that's just undeniable, because the reality is chemistry plays a role in the reaction to the words that we hear. So when we face criticism or rejection, when we feel marginalized or minimized, our body produces this thing called cortisol, and it's a hormone that shuts off our ability to think clearly. Right? In the corporate world, they call it your executive brain, your ability to see what someone else doesn't see. As leaders, we know we see further faster, typically. And when we allow cortisol to take over in our body, there's this chemical reaction that shuts down our ability to navigate something to the same degree. Because here's why. It shuts it down for coming from a place of protection, to protect us from something that seems painful. It thinks before you even consciously recognize your body is gearing up, because it is reacting to and sensitive of something that appears to be negative. Now, I love feedback. Most people I coach and I spend time with don't like to give it or don't like to get it, because there's somehow this association with words that people use and have used, that if it's confrontational and the words aren't pleasing and desirable, then it must be negative. And so when we perceive greater negativity than what really exists, we almost never feel heard and understood. We almost never feel like we're connecting. We almost never feel better at the end of the conversation than we did at the beginning. And here's the thing. Positive comments have this similar reaction, similar response. It's a chemical reaction, although it produces oxytocin. That feels good. I mean, some of you might have done the study by Gary Chapman about the 5 love languages. Some of you on this call, your love language is words of affirmation. And so when somebody speaks something to you that doesn't feel affirming, rather quite the contrary, it cuts like a knife. It cuts to the quick, and it sinks deep into your being. So let me tell a bit more about the chemistry piece of it. Everything happens through conversation. Everything happens through conversation. And here's the thing, even silence can be conversation, right? Sometimes we know what people we live, love, or work with are thinking before they're even thinking it. The fact of the matter is, it is the most powerful thing we can do to show up for people, being mindful of the words we choose to use, and having an overarching goal and intention in all of those interactions to stay connected at the end of them. Here's what I mean by that. I cannot be the only one on this call whose mouth has gotten them into trouble. I can't be the only one on this call who's tripped their lip by saying something. And here's the thing about words. Words are only 7% of our conversations. Words are only really 7% of the conversations that we have. 37% is our body language. And whatever the other difference is, I'm not great at math, 37% is your tone of voice. And the difference, 50-some%, is your body language. I coach people who say, my boss is always yelling at me. Now, the boss would tell you, I never raised my voice. My kids growing up would say, stop yelling. Now I say it's just my motivational speaking voice. But even then, I don't think I raised my voice. I think we raised the tone to improve the argument. The fact of the matter, my friends, is if one person is right in a conversation, then that makes the other person wrong. If we want to win an argument, that means we are determined that the other person that we live or love or work with has to be wrong. See, if we're choosing the words we're using, then we really want more than anything to be connected at the end of that conversation, which means we are mindful of the conversations and the emotional content that we bring. Because some conversations are really hard to have. Some are really difficult. The limiting belief is that the difficult conversation distances us. The fact of the matter, the truth with the capital T, is they can be a platform for such greater levels of intimacy and connection. And you really usually can't have this without that. And so we avoid it out of fear because of the words we might have heard long ago that continue to trigger in us something that shuts us down. Conversations trigger emotional reactions. We said that. They carry meaning. We give meaning to stuff, my friends. We give meaning. A lot of the people that I work with, I'll say, so what are you saying to yourself about yourself? What is that saying to you about you? Because what we hear is about us. And unless we are willing to clarify, a lot of times the conclusions we draw by the words somebody else uses are incomplete and inaccurate. Last week, I woke up to a text message about 1 a.m. and I wear glasses, as you can see. I didn't have my glasses on. I read the text. My text is about this big, so I can read it. And the way I read it was, this is from one of my clients, can we go live till the end of the pandemic? Now, stay with me. I read it as, can we go live till the end of the pandemic? I responded to her and said, now here's what she meant by live. I do coaching with people one-on-one. 95% of it is over the phone. There are times where I audio record somebody, and almost never do I do live. This is live, okay? I hope everyone's following me. The word live is exactly how I read LIVE. I responded and said, you're the client. It's your agenda. It will make for a difficult, it'll pose a different set of circumstances, but we can try it. I found out on our coaching call 3 days later that what her message said was, can I come live with you till after the pandemic? Can I live with you? Hello, my friends, can I live with you is a very different text message than can I go live with you? Do you understand this one word? I read it as live. She was asking me to live with me, like to live in my house, like live here. However, my response still kept the conversation going because it made sense. I said, you're the client. It will pose some difficult or some different circumstances, but it's up to you. We'll try it. So if we didn't ever get back on the phone and get further clarification, and of course we stumbled a little bit because I got on the next call with a video. She couldn't understand why. She thinks she's living with me. I think I'm live with her. And the power of one word. The power of one word. Here's what I don't love about virtual things is some of you, I know you and I can see you laughing. And it would be so much better if I could hear you laughing, because that is so funny and only happens to somebody like me, because I interviewed my husband. Here's Bob. I interviewed my husband, Bob. I bring him on a stick everywhere. And my daughter who lives here right now. And they read the text and they said, Mom, it was very clear. She asked if she could live with us. I was like, no, she didn't. That's not what she asked. Anyway, okay. So note, number 3, note that the words we use in a conversation are rarely neutral. When I work with people, I work with them very specifically on letting a circumstance remain neutral. Here's what I mean by that. When we navigate something, it's neutral, meaning this is what it is. We decide if it's good or bad, right or wrong, by the meaning we give it. The words that we choose to use, as cited in these scriptures and this other, these chemical reactions, they're really almost never neutral, because there's some meaning that's assigned to them. There's something overlaid because of the person's experience. So the fact of the matter is, the words we choose to use have monumental impact. They draw us in closer in our relationships, or they actually create a greater distance between us. And here's the thing, my friend, I don't care if you're a man or a woman or your age or stage of faith on this call. We are radically relational. We want and desire a connection. We want it. We long for it. And when we don't get it because words that someone chose to use caused us to shut down, I would challenge you that it's almost more difficult to stay shut off than it is to lean in and get further clarification about the words somebody chose to use. And here's what I think is so powerful. Despite all the stuff that we're seeing on the news and everyone bashing everyone, and it's not very life-giving, right? It's just not. So, and the truth is, what people say and do makes sense to them. So there's no judgment. It's just not very uplifting. And so we can watch something on the news, and then on a commercial, we see some tagline come in that says, "Stay apart and band together." We see some little hashtag that says, "We're better together." We see a little hashtag that says, "Stay home, save lives." The power of words, they have the ability to take our breath away. I can tell you, people have spoken words unto me that have brought such life. Equally, other people have spoken words to me that have literally created that experience of death. Because my friends, communication is the essence of relationship. And just because we are talking does not mean that we are communicating. I was trying to Google those hashtags, those slogans that are happening right now, because I'm moved by them. Almost every commercial, I am moved by the words that are stated. And then of course the ending hashtag, which just like nails the message of what we're all navigating right now. This message of the only certainty being uncertainty. And I came across this thing that I thought was so appropriate. It said these 5 things. It said, number 1, applied to the words. It was actually referenced about a campaign, how to run a good business campaign during this time. That's what came up on Google for some reason. And I thought, this is about words. It's perfect, Jesus. It says, context always matters. Evaluate the practicality of what we're saying. And then it said, constantly reassess, because this moment matters. And there's a right time. Scripture says there's the right word spoken in the right season. Oh man, it's like a tree of life. It said be creatively considerate. Like some of us use humor, and there's times where things are just not humorous to people right now. It said change your priorities to navigate the uncertainty. And my friends, have we all to some degree not changed, flipped upside down, and turned around what we thought was so important before this pandemic? We spent so much time doing what we thought was important that many of us weren't really doing what the most important thing was. Number 5 said, which again, this had nothing to do with tonight's talk or about words. However, I like to apply my kids say, Mom, you can make everything about Jesus. And yes, I can. Number 5, contribute at every opportunity. Contribute. Your words bring life or death, and you have the ability to contribute at every opportunity by the words that you choose to use. This is like worth the price of admission, and since it's free, I know you didn't pay a lot to get in here. I would strongly try to eliminate these words from your vocabulary, and after this, we'll be done with this podcast. Number 1, eliminate you always. Let's never start sentences with you always, almost equally as detrimental as you never. I mean, when do we ever lean in when someone's talking to us and they start with you always and you never? We never do. We always lean out, we never lean in. Or even this, I hate when you fill in the blank. Or you never. So I strongly suggest some of your takeaways beyond the scriptures and the other bullet points we referenced this evening is eliminate you always, you never, I hate when you. And the bonus elimination of words from your vocabulary, because it has monumental implications, my friends, is 2 words, but and why. But and why. Replace but with and replace why with anything other than why to start a conversation. Because my friends, conversation and communication is the essence of relationships. And so we are going to want to choose the words that we use. So this is Judy Hare, and we are ending the April 22nd, 2020 Journey with Judy podcast. Is it nice? Is it necessary? Is it true? If not, keep it to you. Oh, the power of words. We just discussed them. And for those of you who want to continue the dialogue, I can be found on many platforms by going to judyher.com, JUDYHEHR.com. And you can connect with me, follow me, friend me, whatever feels most comfortable for you. And you can learn more about the products and services that I'm offering on that website. Also, if you're not already signed up, I encourage you to sign up for the weekly emails that will send you a link to these podcasts, as well as sending you the recorded version of these podcasts after the fact. So thank you and God bless. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Journey with Judy. To learn more about Judy's coaching ministry, receive a complimentary session, and other services she offers, visit judyher.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. And remember, it's never too late to be who God called you to be.